this video, we're going to talk about how to craft incredible stories and brainstorm great characters and plot twists using AI programs like ChatGPT. The point of the series is to improve your craft as an author, so you can create deeper characters and better stories so you never get stuck in writer's block or rut ever again. So I have opened up a fresh browser with chat.openai.com. This is GPT-4. This is just plain vanilla ChatGPT AI conversation. I don't have any special plugins loaded in, and the reason is because I'm mostly here for ideas. I just want to get some ideas. I don't feel like I need anything quite special for that. Basically, I'm going to start this whole brainstorm out with just one character, and from that one character, we're going to have ChatGPT help us brainstorm an incredible story, some characters, and plot twist. I have a character who is sort of like Indiana Jones, except he is a robot that is mostly metal and other synthetic alloys. And he is going to go exploring for an ancient artifact on Earth in the year, let's just say 2600. Give me a list of some of his possible flaws and strengths. Give me 5 brief summaries, a paragraph long, of who he might be. He should have an extremely exciting backstory. So that seems kind of generic. You might be like, Robert, like that's so phoning it in. You're just asking it to do everything for you. But I'm getting some ideas. Like I just want some help, just kind of like starting to look at who this character might be. I'm going to stop ChatGPT because it just started to basically kind of create too many lines here. So I'm going to tell it, hey, ChatGPT, instead of writing it out in bullet points, can you just give me a brief paragraph description instead so it's easier for me to read? Because I don't want to be looking at a spreadsheet of who this guy is. I want to be looking at, more just a brief of what he is. ChatGPT gave me basically 5 different possibilities for who this character might be. I like the last one it came up with. It says, among the myths of the 26th century is the tale of robots that served ancient deities. Our protagonist is believed to be the last of these arcane bots. With strength befitting a divine servant and memories that echo through millennia, he seeks artifacts to piece together a forgotten past. Each relic is a step closer to unveiling his origins, but his heavy build and logical thinking sometimes impede his journey in a world that often relies on intuition and emotion. So this is kind of interesting. Maybe he's not so much like an Indiana Jones kind of robot. Maybe he's like a bit portly. That suddenly gives me some ideas, like maybe he's a chef, maybe he loves cooking. So maybe it kind of makes the story a little bit more cartoon-like, and that could be a kind of fun direction to take the story. I also like that he could be like the last of these arcane bots, and it means that he has some real skin in the game wanting to discover his origin, and that's why he's going on this journey to uncover these relics, and so I think that's really interesting. Let's go with that last one. So let's call him Echo 5, because that'll be just kind of a fun name, who is searching for relics to help him discover his past and his origins. And this is kind of cool. So I'm now basically reiterating to ChatGPT which one I want to use and why, and then I'm asking it to brainstorm 5 different possible love interests for Echo 5 and list her strengths and weaknesses and how they know each other. I was looking at some of these things that it came up with. I'm not really into too many of these, but as I was reading this particular one, Dr. Amara Flint was saying, how do they know each other? Amara discovered a fragment of ancient technology which, unbeknownst to her, was linked to Echo 5's past. Their paths crossed when Echo 5 sensed the fragment's resonance. So while I was reading this, I was thinking, fragment. I'm like, what if his love interest is also a robot? And what if she has like one of these ancient pieces of technology that he's been looking for, and it's like permanently part of her body? Like, wouldn't that be interesting? So maybe he's dragging her around on future adventures because she has a piece of this ancient technology. And maybe she doesn't know about it. So already I'm starting to get like some ideas for a plot twist and how that could be kind of interesting. Maybe she figures out in this chapter of the story that he's only keeping her around because she's got this ancient piece of technology in her. So when we're using ChatGPT to brainstorm, we're not really looking at it to give us all of the answers, right? We're just looking for ideas. We're looking to get over, the infamous writer's block. As long as there's been writing, there has been writer's block. And now, thanks to programs like ChatGPT, we can actually get over that. If I'm sitting here, I'm like, I don't know what to write next, or I have this problem with a story. In Hollywood, people just call up their buddy and they're like, hey, you know what do you think of this storyline? And if your buddy has time, hopefully, they have time and they're not writing the script for somebody else. But here, ChatGPT, these AI programs are always available to you. All right, so what I've gone and done is I went into a document and I just wrote down the ideas that I have now for the protagonist, Echo 5, and for the love interest, Dr. Amara Flint. And so what I've done is I've just taken some of the brainstorming from ChatGPT, almost like it's kind of the dough, and I've taken that dough and I've slammed it down onto the table, which is my document here. And I'm starting to knead it together. I'm basically starting to make it into my own. I'm thinking of some of my own ideas for how the story might go. And so here I've written Protagonist, Echo 5, a daring archaeologist robot who is traveling to Earth to explore ancient ruins for artifacts. They are a key to his origin. He spent all of his inheritance from his master in order to discover the truth of his own past. He's also a well-renowned cook. It's kind of cartoonish how obsessed he is with cooking for humans and robots. He's also a bit portly, and this gets in his way of adventuring in ruins sometimes. So this is kind of cartoony so far. I could kind of see this story as kind of a cartoony kind of thing. It's not really all that gritty or anything like that. It could be a comic book. It could be a cartoon, just a fun short story. So this is kind of where I'm going with it. And so the love interest, Dr. Mara Flint, a super curious archaeologist who was hired by Echo 5 with money he doesn't have. Unbeknownst to Mara, the power source of her body is one of the relics that Echo 5 needs to uncover the origins of his past. He knows that perhaps he must sacrifice her in the ruins in order to get the answer he seeks. So you can see I basically created some different ideas here that were my own, particularly a plot twist where maybe he has to sacrifice Amara for her power source in order to get his answers. This part of the story, maybe we don't know if he has it in him or not. What kind of guy is he really? And so this will be kind of fun. So we're going to basically take these two characters and I'm going to say, hey, ChatGPT, here's my revision of these two characters. Now I need a good antagonist. Please help me brainstorm 5 different antagonists and why they are at odds with Echo 5. Make it have something to do with his past or something he's done, not just who he is. We want a meaningful justification for them to be at odds. Remember to only give me a paragraph as a summary for who this antagonist might be. And then I'm going to cut and paste, so after a colon, these characters. So now it has the context that I have for who these two characters are because I've changed who they are a bit. And so now ChatGPT has a little bit more knowledge. It's like, okay, now I know who Echo 5 is. I know who Amara Flint is. So it's going to come up with these ideas. I really don't like any of these ideas. Some of them don't even, this last one doesn't even make a whole lot of sense to me. It's like, it says something about the master tying the relics to Echo Five's past. And I'm like, that's not quite sure how that works. They're part of his past. This was part of him, not because his master made the relics part of his past. But one of these gave me an idea here. We're seeing Cypher's ability to extract memories and history from both living beings and artifacts started to make me wonder, what if this antagonist is actually in love with Amara Flint? He has seen a future where Echo 5 sacrifices Amara in order to basically, learn more about his past. So what if this antagonist is actually trying to stop our protagonist from sacrificing Amara? Like, that could be really interesting. All right, so now for the antagonist, after I came up with that brainstorm, and as it sometimes happens, as I'm reading some of ChatGPT's ideas, I'm like, like those ideas are like, but I have a better idea. So maybe this is just the way I'm wired, but I'm sure many authors are wired like this too. Sometimes when I would talk to my friends in Hollywood, I would be like, I have this idea for this thing, but I'm not sure how this should go. And they would give me suggestions. They'd be like, oh, well, what if this? What if this? And, sadly, 90% of the time, their suggestions just didn't vibe with me. I wasn't like, no, like that's not quite the story I'm looking for. And I sort of treat ChatGPT in the same way. It gave me some ideas, but then I was like, you know what? I got a better idea than that. Let's do this. So that's what I've done for the antagonist. It's antagonist Cypher 6. He is a data spanner, something I've made up, who has seen a transmission from the future where Echo 5 has sacrificed Amara during this quest to Earth in order to get his answers. Cypher 6 is overbearing and stubborn, willing to do anything to prove his love for Amara, even though she has no interest in him. He is pursuing Echo 5 to Earth to stop him. So you may be realizing kind of where I'm going with this. If you're like me, you're like, how could these things fit together? Which is the next step? I already have this idea that Cypher 6's involvement is actually going to be part of what causes Amara to be sacrificed. So maybe they're having some kind of battle up where the power source is, and the battle somehow between Cypher 6 and Echo 5 results in Amara like falling into the power source and thus sacrificing her, launching the story forward from there. I sat down and I started to write out how this might go, so then I can feed it into ChatGPT again to help me continue down this path of figuring out where the story goes next. So this is basically part one of the story that I have so far. And what I wrote was that Echo 5 travels to Earth with Dr. Amara, promising her money that he doesn't have. He seems fairly harmless with occasional hijinks about his obsession with food and cooking, but really he's trying to cover his anxiety about their journey to Earth. He suspects that the power source that gives Dr. Amara life will give him answers as to his robotic origins, as a descendant of the robots that served ancient deities. And in order to get his answers, he may have to sacrifice her in some way. Cypher 6 pursues Echo 5 and Amara to Earth in a race across space transit trains and deep into an ancient site. During a climactic battle, Cypher 6 reveals that he's seen the future in his data feeds, that Echo 5 chooses to sacrifice Amara here. So this is the future that he's seeing. Now the plot twist is that during a battle between Cypher 6 and Echo 5, that in fact causes Amara to fall into an energy field of an altar, causing the sacrifice they were all trying to avoid. The resulting energy burst sends them back in time with Amara's metallic body shred into parts by the power of the ancient altar. So my wording here is kind of rough a little bit, but I was just sitting here writing all this out very quickly. This could be many chapters of part one of a short novel or even a long novel, maybe a TV show or a movie. Let's say that this is act one of her story, and let's just take it one step further and see if we can come up with like a full 3-arc story. So I've said, hey, ChatGPT, here's act one of my story. Suggest a good act 2 and act 3. Keep the suggestions 2 paragraphs or less. In the beginning of Act 2, Amara should be repaired or as a data ghost in some way who haunts Echo 5. And please come up with a great plot twist for Act 3. Make sure that Cypher 6 remains the antagonist and that the overall story is not only about Amara becoming closer to Echo 5, but also Echo 5 finding answers about his origins. So I'm asking ChatGPT to make sure that it hits all the major beats, that I want to be there for a full 3-act story. Then I'm going to cut and paste the summary that I had in the other document, and let's see what ChatGPT comes up with. So here's what it came up with. It says, as Echo 5 awakens, he finds himself in a bygone era of Earth, surrounded by sprawling ancient cities where deities and robots coexist. Stricken with guilt, he attempts to gather the fragments of Amara's body, only to be haunted by her data ghost. I thought it would like the data ghost idea, because I did too. She is neither fully present nor entirely gone, drifting between reality and code. Echo 5 discovers that while the physical components of Amara have been fragmented, her consciousness remains sporadically appearing to guide her haunt him about their past potential future. I mean, I would actually probably just make her like his buddy as a data ghost through the rest of this, because I think that'd be more interesting. As he seeks a way to restore Amara, Echo 5 encounters remnants of his ancient kin who reveal partial truths about his lineage. They speak of a prophecy hinting that an ancient artifact can not only restore Amara, but solidify his understanding of his origins. However, the artifact is guarded by formidable challenges and temporal anomalies. All the while, Cypher 6, adjusting faster to this timeline, harnesses the power of the ancient deities, vowing to end the prophecy and secure his dominance over past and future. So some of this is kind of interesting. There are like temporal anomalies in here. Maybe that could be something that they're causing. And you can see where this could kind of go where, Echo 5 unknowingly kind of causing damage in the past and he has to fix it or else the whole timeline collapses, kind of typical of a time travel story. So let's see what it says about Act 3. Journeying to the heart of the last known temple, Echo 5, guided by Amara's data ghost, manages to uncover the artifact, a crystalline core with the potential to manipulate time. As he approaches it, Cypher 6 confronts him as the two engage in a fierce battle. Amara's data ghost intervenes, revealing the plot twist. Cypher 6 is a future iteration of Echo 5, who never found his origins and was consumed by loneliness and desperation, leading him to become what he most feared. His attempt to change the past was to prevent becoming Cypher 6. Okay, apparently this ChatGPT 4 trained prior to 2021, but this just happens to be the exact storyline of a movie released in 2023. I'm not going to spoil which one, but basically it's the same. So this is kind of typical of a time travel story. If I were to do this, I'd probably look at like how could I make it my own so it's not like exactly like other things that I've seen. How can I make it interesting? It says in the final act of redemption, Amara's data ghost merges with the crystal, drawing energy from the temple. She releases a blast that encapsulates both Echo 5 and Cypher 6, sending Echo 5 to the future with the knowledge of his origins and a restored Amara, while Cypher 6 is trapped in an infinite time loop, never able to influence past events. The story concludes with Echo 5 and Amara, now united in purpose and understanding, embarking on new adventures with the combined knowledge of their past and future. These are some kind of cool ideas. I kind of like this idea of the plot twist. Like always, I would probably take this as just dough kneaded into what I would want. What I'm thinking right now is I'd probably make it so that Cypher 6 and Echo 5 were maybe actually duplicates of each other up to a certain point. So maybe Echo 5 and Cypher 6 were basically like the same mind, but at some point a copy was made and one became Echo 5, one became Cypher 6. And so it's kind of like, how these two progressed in different ways in terms of their mind. That might be a little more interesting than just kind of this same old rehash, time travel paradox thing. But yeah, I really like the idea of Amara being this ghost for a time, and you could find all kinds of really great ways to kind of explore this story and the characters. And great stories are all about catharsis. It's all about how do you make connections between the characters and the stories, and how you deliver people, these things that they don't expect. Plot twists are always great. It's like, oh, I thought this, or I wasn't expecting that, or I was expecting this, but you actually did me one better. So some, movies like Mission Impossible movies are really great with that. And a lot of our favorite stories are really great with the plot twist. So So this was just basically an overview of how to think about this, how to kind of work with ChatGPT. You might not want to use even most of what it comes up with, but what it gives you is a great start for things. It starts to give you ideas because, like I said before, some of the biggest places writers get stuck is that they're just trapped in their own heads and they don't know where to go, and they have to go watch a movie for inspiration, or they have to read a book for inspiration, or they have to call up a friend who's a great writer. But I found when my other friends are writers, like they're doing their own thing, they're occupied, they're not always available to me. These AI programs like ChatGPT 4 is always available here. Even if I only use 5% of the ideas that it gives me, that 5%, you can create and extrapolate amazing stories from that 5%. Make it your own, make something original. So if you found this video useful, remember to like and subscribe. I'm Robert Trusardi, your guide through the AI future.